I am not a Canadian, but I think I'm becoming an honorary one. A quick background check. Brett suddenly popped up in my email box, I don't know, 15 years ago, and said, I'm a big fan of your work. I love your novel, Wet Work, which is the world's first and hopefully last apocalyptic zombie espionage police procedural, which I do actually have a few copies which will be available for sale at the author signing session tomorrow night. Anyway, so Brett pops up and then goes, you need a website. And I can't do his wacky Toronto accent, but I can say a boot.
A boot?
A boot.
No, that's anyway. The Atlantic provinces.
Anyway, Brett started my first website, which we ran through GothicNet. We're headed up by Darren McKeeman, and we became friends. I was also honoured that Brett asked me to ask for my advice. I sort of mentored him a little bit for a few months as he was making his first inroads into fiction, and credit where credit's due. As much as he and Sandra have turned into wonderful publishers, and I mean, look at how beautiful all these books are and the way that they're supporting all the other authors, which I think is terrific. I did, of course, threaten to kill Brett if he didn't publish Cities of Night. It was the quickest book sale I've ever done. We managed it in 24 hours, but of course the bastard still insisted that I sent him some stories before he would actually sign off. And this is from the man who actually had me as part of his wedding party, Sandra. And by the way, we do finally have your wedding gift to give you tonight. Like 9 years later. Anya's getting pissed off. My wife is getting pissed off because she hasn't wrapped it up yet.
No,
but anyway.
That isn't how we were supposed to tell you. We had it all planned.
Hey, I'm riffing here. I've had 3 glasses. Anyway, so here we have it. Cities of Night, the quickest book sale in history. Threatening to break Brett's kneecaps resulted in a sale in approximately 12 hours after I immediately emailed him 3 stories because he'd actually forgotten, the cheeky bugger, what I'd written and he'd read before. Anyway, without further ado, I'm going to give you a little taste of this book. The dedication is to a late great man. Actually, there are multiple dedications in here, but the British director Lindsay Anderson, who made If and Oh Lucky Man and Britannia Hospital, had some of the greatest impact on me as a teenager. So, in memoriam, Lindsay Anderson, 1923, 1994, and to quote his favourite quote, which is also the title of his collected writings and is my philosophy for this year, never apologise. The book is also, there's a special thanks to the great British actor Malcolm McDowell, who I've had the pleasure of becoming friends with over the last couple of years. And I'm going to quote from the great Alan Price song from Oh Lucky Man, "If you have a reason to live on and not to die, you are a lucky man." And then there's more dedication, but I won't bore you with that. The book starts with a quote I discovered purely by accident about 3 years ago, which has sort of become my mantra and the foundation stone of my personal philosophy. It's from T.E. Lawrence, as in Lawrence of Arabia. I don't know where exactly the quote originated from, but this sums up the nature of this book. All men dream, but not equally. Those who dream by night in the dusty recesses of their minds awake in the day to find it was all vanity. But the dreamers of the day are dangerous men, for they may act their dream with open eyes to make it possible. And I dedicate this to all the other fine writers in this room, because we are all dreamers of the day who are making the dream a reality. And I give you all my love and respect for the great work you're doing. I will read a little from an original piece. I've known for 10 years that I was going to write this story, which is partially a homage to an author who had perhaps the greatest influence on me as a teenager, the late great Anthony Burgess, who wrote Clockwork Orange. And if you've never read a novel called Earthly Powers, which I think is out of print, track it down off of ABE. It's 900 pages of sheer fucking brilliance. Anyway, so I've always wanted to write a homage to that. Anyway, so this is actually the bookend. There's the first part, and then the last part are the cornerstones of this collection. It was weird for me to have to go through 28 years of published fiction, because Brett freaked out when I told him I was going to do like a 140,000 word book, and he's like, no, we don't do more than 100,000 words, it's too expensive. So I had to scale back, I had to go through. It was disturbing to discover, because I'm not terribly prolific as a short story writer, that I had actually produced over 200,000 words of published fiction, or nearly all, but 85% of it was published. Anyway, without further ado, the beginning of Unearthly Powers. The first part is called Prelude to a Nocturne. It was the afternoon of the day of my death, and I was in bed with my Japanese concubine when Hyan, my housekeeper, announced that the Archbishop had come to see me. "Take him to the bar and get him a drink," I quavered in Mandarin, trying not to laugh because Paul Pope was no more an archbishop than I was a Sufi. Prescient I may often be, but I had not foreseen the arrival of the Pope of Perversity on this, the most auspicious of days. Not only was it the day of my death, but I also knew with terrible clarity that it was the day of the big one. California was about to submerge like Atlantis, and Nevada was about to become beachfront property. I may have retired 15 years ago from the professions of novelist and screenwriter. Nevertheless, you will be constrained to consider that if you know my work at all and take the trouble now to reread that first sentence, that I have lost none of my old cunning in the contrivance of what is known as an arresting opening. But there is really nothing fake about it. Reality often plays into the hands of art. That I had celebrated my 93rd birthday 2 months earlier was a fact. The living room was still festooned with old-fashioned birthday cards. That Paul had come, albeit unexpectedly, to visit was a fact. But only I knew that the rest of the day had in store for the pestilent millions who swarmed over the west coast like red ants picking clean a carcass. I caressed Tomomi's beautiful buttocks between the 310-count cotton sheets. Sighing, she positioned her head on my shoulder. She was 27. I did not deserve a beautiful young blossom beside me. We had never exchanged carnal knowledge, but we had shared an intimacy known only to true lovers. She understood that even at my still tumescent antiquarian age, that Eros had flown the coop when my beloved Tess passed away 7 years previously. Tomo knew I had been faithful to my last wife, the greatest lover of my life, the only woman who had truly embraced my soul.